Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our natural living workshop with Lily Kunning, community herbalist who volunteers with us. And she's the main formularist, I probably pronounced that wrong, Lily, with Haven Herbs. And we are greatly appreciative of Lily volunteering her time and sharing her time and talent and expertise with us. I will be muting the group for clarity of sound for Lily. Again, you are always welcome to put any questions that you have in the chat, and then Lily will have time at the end for question and answer. So you can use the chat at any time, or the last 15 minutes of the presentation, you are welcome to unmute and ask directly. So Lily, thank you so very much for presenting Gut Health is Whole Body Health today.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. Even though I moved away from Columbus, I still love teaching every month for cancer support community. I'm going to quickly do one of these deals. There we go. And I'm going to share my screen because I have a slide deck for you. And I wanted to let you know that after this presentation, I will send the slide deck to Darlene. It'll help you remember what we talked about, but there are also a bunch of embedded links. So when I talk about certain things, I'll point out where the links are, and you'll be able to use that to access the resources that I'm talking about. So, hopefully everyone can see my screen. That's good. All right. So today we're going to be talking about how when you strengthen your digestion and your gut, your whole body benefits. And the one thing that I want to say before we get started is the digestive tract is the first thing that is created when a new being comes into existence. After the cluster of cells, the first thing that forms that's anatomical is the whole alimentary canal, and everything kind of goes from there. We get our nervous system developing, and so the gut is innervated. We get the immune system starting to build itself, and 75 to 90% of your immune system is in your gut. Also, you have so many endocrine links to your gut. And between your nervous system and your endocrine system, they regulate everything that is happening in your body. So, really paying attention to digestion and making sure that it's optimized as much as possible is going to help you to stay well. So, right now, though, Americans really have some serious digestive issues. 25% of all doctor visits when you go visit a primary care physician have to do with gut issues. 43% of Americans and 50% of American women feel like weight loss is a health goal. And weight loss in and of itself is not a health goal. There are things that we can talk about in terms of your wellness that have to do with, blood pressure and blood sugar and things like that, which are actual indicators of health. But in and of itself, weight loss is not really a health goal. And I know we've been sold a bill of goods in this country about that. And it has led to the rise of an entire industry, the diet industry, is constantly putting things on television and on the internet to talk to you about like what you should be doing. Lots of fad diets, lots of supplements that are about weight loss, lots of pharmaceuticals about weight loss that often have some serious side effects. And often they cause more damage than they do good. There are lots of kinds of dysfunctions of the digestive system. Some basic ones are, gas and bloating, which can be quite painful. Acid reflux, and acid reflux can turn into GERD, which is much more serious because GERD can translate into esophageal cancer. Gallbladder attacks, where your gallbladder isn't functioning properly and maybe even creating stones. Uh, Diarrhea and constipation, often two sides of the same coin in terms of symptoms. Bad breath is caused by bad digestion or decaying teeth. Those are the two causes of bad breath. Inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, And, I know that many of you have probably received a diagnosis from a doctor of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Um, that diagnosis just means they recognize and they accept that there is something wrong with your digestive tract, but they don't know what is causing it. It's sort of a catch-all diagnosis, and they just throw a bunch of stuff at it and see what sticks. But millions of Americans are affected by gut issues, and I would love to hear in the chat what kinds of things have you experienced or are experiencing, just to kind of get an idea of the temperature of the room, like who here has digestive issues and what kind. So if you want to, go ahead and put those in the chat and I will take a look at it. But usually for digestive issues, we do a lot of symptom management. We pop, antacids, or we take PPIs like the one shown here. People are willing to try anything because frankly, gut misery is misery. But PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, were never ever designed or tested for long-term use. They are meant for short-term use, so that you don't have uh, issues that are causing like gastric ulcers, for example. But there are huge side effects for people that take PPIs long term, and doctors don't really talk about it when they recommend them. They're like, oh, you should try Zantac, or that'll help with your acid reflux, but they don't ever say like, we also need to work on some long-term root cause management because you shouldn't be taking them in the long term. They cause liver damage. And you'll notice here that PPIs is underlined, which means there's a link to an article about how to get off of them if you are one of those people that is taking them in the long term and would like to get off of them. So I have an article for that. GERD is a very big issue. It's very prevalent, particularly in North America. You can see the statistics are pretty low in East Asia, and yet in North America, it's, quadruple the amount. And these numbers are from 2022. I'm going to update my numbers. I have a feeling they're a lot higher. I updated some numbers in subsequent slides for 2022, and I was astonished at how much things had increased. But like I said, 25% of primary care visits are related in some way to GERD. GERD is when acid reflux becomes chronic and systemic, and it can lead to esophageal cancer. So you do need to shut it down, which is why short-term use of PPIs, is recommended while you're dealing with the root causes. Because until you deal with the root cause of something, symptom management only manages your symptoms as long as you're taking a remedy, right? And again, PPIs aren't recommended or researched for long-term use. So let's talk about some of those dysfunctions that we see on the rise in the United States. So autoimmune disease like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis are on the rise in the United States, and not just digestive autoimmune, but all kinds of autoimmune. And, when I say that, what I'm saying is, as a holistic practitioner, all autoimmune disease has the same root cause, but it manifests in different ways. So the digestive tract autoimmune, Crohn's and UC, are just your system's attacking digestive tract, as opposed to like lupus or psoriasis, which attacks the skin or scalp. What is being attacked isn't necessarily the issue, although modern biochemical medicine talks about them as separate things. And as a holistic practitioner, that's not how we look at things. We look at what is going wrong in the body and how to fix the underlying issue rather than how symptoms manifest. Now, symptom management is important because if you've got, psoriasis and you've got a huge rash on your arm, you're going to want to take care of the rash. It's also uncomfortable, as well as the underlying cause. And symptom management is something that holistic practitioners do. But the main thing that we do is try and get at the underlying causes of autoimmune dysfunction, for example. All right, let's see. Another common digestive dysfunction is gallbladder attacks or stones. And this ugly picture up on the top right is actually a removed gallbladder that was stuffed to the gills with stones. I'm sure that that was incredibly uncomfortable for the person that had their gallbladder removed. And I have seen many, many, many clients who have had their gallbladder removed, and I really wish they would have sought out help before that extreme measure, because, you know, removing an entire body part is an extreme thing that should only be a last resort, and there should be steps taken along the way to prevent such an extreme needed treatment. When I see people that have digestive dysfunction, early enough, we can actually get to the root cause and get it so that there isn't surgical removal of an organ. But again, it takes people really being in tune with their bodies, listening to their bodies, seeking out help not only from their primary care physician, but from a holistic practitioner, and often partnerships between that primary care physician and that practitioner. I work with doctors that are willing to work with me, and I know many other Ayurvedic, Oriental medicine, and Western herbalist practitioners are willing to do the same. Um, so yeah, so gallstones can be caused by a number of things. A lot of times it's too much waste in the bile. In other words, the liver is dysfunctioning. Because, you know, one of the things to know is that the gallbladder is an empty sac and it's right near the liver. And when the liver produces bile, it gets released into the gallbladder. And the gallbladder's job is to release bile strategically when your digestive tract gets fatty foods, because bile is there to break down fatty foods. But you know, dysfunction can happen where it's not releasing and it's forming stones. And so what we need to do is get at the root cause of why it's happening. So what's not a problem? BMI is not a problem. If your doctor has ever talked to you about BMI, just realize that this is 19th century technology. It was invented by a doctor that was trying to come up with some way to measure, you know, problems in the body, but ended up uh, landing on a ratio of fat to rest of body tissue. And that's actually not a good indicator, a measure of health. Looking at blood pressure, looking at A1C, looking at other things that actually show biochemically what is happening in the body is a much better indicator of health than BMI. And obesity as a term literally means defining a BMI of 30 or higher, which makes it irrelevant. Like, obesity epidemic is not really an epidemic. We do have an issue with eating bad food, highly processed, overly sugared food that is commercially available to us, which can cause a lot more fat to be stored in the body. But in and of itself, that is not a health issue. Being fat is mainly a health issue because of the stigma attached to it, and the problems that people have navigating the world as a fat person. Not just, you know, physically, but emotionally. They're less likely to get a job, for example, less likely to have fulfilling relationships. And these are all social indicators of what being fat is, not necessarily health ones. And I wanted to point out, because I know a lot of older women tend to be in the audience of cancer support community, postmenopausal women for their own health should be gaining a pound a year on average. And that is so because fat stores estrogen. Um, and as we wane in our estrogen, it can cause bone density issues. It can cause a bunch of other issues. And if we gain a pound a year post menopause, we are storing estrogen in our bodies so that we're preventing, broken hips and other major medical problems. As a practitioner, I believe in health at every size. Um, I know plenty of fat athletes. I know people who have really great blood pressure and blood sugar and cholesterol levels, and they are fat. I do recommend getting labs done when you get your physical, whether that's annual or every other year. But you can be healthy at any size. I just want to put that out there. As long as you are getting your heart rate up every day for 30 minutes and you are moving and stretching and you are eating a healthy, nutritious diet, you can be healthy and fat. And this is the number that I talked about that I just updated. When I last did this session, the diet industry had made $66 billion. And last year they made $242 billion from us in books, diet, food, subscription plans, supplementation, pharmaceuticals aimed at weight loss, all of these things. And that doesn't even include the industries that rely on the diet industry to kind of prop themselves up. Clothing, fashion, magazines, things like that, that are constantly telling us to be at war with our bodies. I feel like we're inundated by messaging telling us to look at our bodies and automatically see flaws. And your body is amazing. And I realize that I am talking to folks that likely have weathered the horrible storm that is cancer, but you're here. You're here listening to this message. And I have to tell you that your body has done an amazing job of getting you here and supporting you every day. It is not cool to look outside of ourselves and get messages that we should hate our bodies. And that leads to a lot of emotional baggage. So I want to say that when we're talking about gut health and digestive health, I am not talking about obesity. And I know I went off on a little loop here, but I feel like it's a really important message for everyone to get. So let's get into diets. There are a couple fad diets that I'm going to outline here because they're very prevalent in advertising, on the internet, people talking about them on TV. And I want to debunk some of the myths around these things. Um, I will tell you, as a holistic practitioner, I believe there's no one true diet for every person because everybody's a little different. Your biochemistry is a little different. Your constitution is different. And so what you need to eat may be different than your next door neighbor. So these diets that are like, everybody should go keto, not helpful. And frankly, keto is not helpful. It was invented by a neurosurgeon for people that have seizure disorders, right? And it is very helpful because you're eating a lot more fat, and fat is food for the nervous system. It is very helpful short term and cycling on and off keto to help with the amount of grand mal seizures people get. That said, you never stay on a keto diet long term. And, that is supervised by a doctor doing regular check ins and lab work. Keto as a weight loss method is just not advised. So this diet, if you don't know, calls for consuming very high amounts of fat, a moderate amount of protein, and a tiny bit of carbs, not enough to actually sustain your energy levels. It's broken down into like 75, 20, and 5, meaning 75% fat, 20% protein, and 5% carbs. Now, I will tell you, carbohydrates are not your enemy. Carbohydrates are what give you energy to get through your day. It is your body converts carbohydrates into sugars, and sugars are the fuel for your muscles and your brain. So you need carbohydrates in your diet. The issue is, what kind of carbohydrates are you eating? If you follow the keto diet for a few days, your body starts to enter what's called ketosis, which means little ketoacidosis. And I'll have a story in a second about ketoacidosis. But what happens is you're not giving your body enough energy. And so it starts using fat for energy instead of carbohydrates. You're shifting your body's biochemistry in a way that it was never meant to do. It's basically starving, tricking your body into thinking it's starving. And so it will start living off your fat. But here's the thing, you're consuming 75% fat. So it's going to start with that. And then it might go to your fat stores in your body, right? The theory is that it would eat fat stores in your body, but I will tell you that you're consuming 75% fat. So it's unlikely. Most people who are recommended this diet for weight loss, they do end up checking their urine for a ketone strip to see if they're in ketosis. Now, let's talk a little bit more about keto. So ketoacidosis is like a more profound form of ketosis. And my ex-partner, um, I had advised them that they were diabetic for a long time. They did not change their diet. They started getting these localized infections, and one of them got big enough that I was like, this isn't responding to any treatment that I'm doing. You need to go to the ER because we probably need it surgically removed. I am so grateful that we did that because they tested their blood as part of the ER procedures. And they did end up removing an infection the size of a softball. That's why it wasn't. It was just being fed by blood sugar, and like the infection was just getting bigger and bigger. When they came back to talk to us about treatment, they're like, we're admitting you to the hospital because your blood sugar is 800 and you should be in a coma. And so my partner spent the weekend forced to fast and not eat any food. Boy, did that make them cranky. But they were in ketoacidosis, right? It is a profound health crisis to put your body into. And voluntarily putting yourself into a mild form of ketosis is not really great medical advice. So, the weight loss initially comes from a loss of water. You're cutting down on the carbs in your diet, and your body is using up the carbohydrates stored in the liver, which holds onto water. Like, there's a whole cascade effect of what happens. They work in the short term, but they are very unhealthy. Once your body enters ketosis, you also begin to lose muscle. You become extremely fatigued, what they call the keto flu, and you eventually enter starvation mode. What happens to people, up on, a mountaintop who can't leave? Like, this is what you're putting your body through, like when you don't have to. Eventually, it becomes even harder to lose weight because your body is trying to hold on to everything because it is starving. It's hard to stick to this kind of diet, generally speaking. The keto flu is what happens mildly. You feel like you have the flu. You have body aches. You're extremely fatigued. You just want to sleep. You can end up giving yourself kidney stones and all kinds of deficiencies. Please, please, please don't go keto. The second fad diet that I'd like to talk to you about is veganism. And I know I get into a lot of issues with folks because veganism is often more than a diet for people. It's sort of a belief system where they believe that they are helping the environment and helping animals. And therefore, it is a more moral diet, not just a healthy diet. And so you get a lot of evangelizing around it, and you get a lot of uh, people who are downright mean when they find out that you're not vegan like them. But I'm going to talk about it anyway because it is a health problem. You can't do a long-term vegan diet. I've known people who've been vegan for over 10 years, and I will tell you they are unhealthy. Um, there are things that you can only get from animal products, whether those are eggs, dairy, or meat, like B12 and heme iron, that your body absolutely needs to function. And you cannot function on synthetic supplements. They would need to come from animals anyway. And frankly, once again, all diets that are good diets, you get your nutrition from the food. You will not have to supplement in the long term if you're on a healthy diet. Um, so typical vegan diets are missing both B12 and heme iron, as well as low vitamin D, essential fatty acids, calcium, and zinc. All of these are essential to good health. So you end up being really sickly. And one of the things that has been documented in scientific studies is that a lot of people who have eating disorders sort of disguise it with veganism because it's an extreme form of food control, and it's the same with bulimia and anorexia. Um, and according to PLOS One, which is an open scientific journal, vegetarians and vegans have higher incidences of cancer, allergies, and mental health disorders than their omnivorous counterparts. It's just not a sustainable diet either. A lot of the foods that vegans purport being super healthy, like quinoa, or jackfruit, have to be imported, right? They don't grow here. You need lots of fossil fuels to bring them here. You are reducing the supply for the native consumers of those, the indigenous people that basically cultivated quinoa from its inception no longer have quinoa as a staple in their diet because most of it is being grown for importation into the United States to feed vegan folks and health conscious folks because it is a grain that is very high in protein. Um, you know, Having the right amount of soy and corn to make fake meat products relies on monoculture farming, which strips our soil and has caused erosion and climate change. It's not better for the environment to be vegan. It's also not better for your body to be vegan. And I know I will get some slack for it when people see the video or possibly even in this class, but I do want to tell you that I used to be a vegan. When I was a teenager, I was a vegetarian. Once I hit my 20s, I went vegan. I am no longer that way. I have studied nutrition, human nutrition specifically, and um, there's a much more balanced diet that we can go to. Couple more fad diets that you should avoid: paleo, intermittent fasting, a pH based diet. Fad diets don't work. What works to keep you healthy and strong is a well balanced diet that works by giving you access to all the nutrients that a human being needs to be healthy. Um, all of these fad diets work on restrictions, and they're not good for you in the long term. So, what is healthy? Let's talk about what we should do, not necessarily what we shouldn't do. Um, this enhances your overall body health. So, I'm a big fan of the Mediterranean diet. Um, and if you know, the bottom of the pyramid are things that you do more frequently, and it goes up and up and up into less frequently. So, you know, physical activity every day, wine in moderation every day, um, but non-refined cereal products, whole grain things, most of the carb foods that people eat and get from the grocery store are highly refined, added sugars. They're just not good for you. And so baking your own bread, eating whole grain foods, those are things that are going to help you to consume healthy grains. And then fruit and vegetables next, olive oil and dairy products. These are things that you should be consuming daily, according to the Mediterranean diet. And then every week, fish, poultry, olives, pulses, nuts, eggs, and potatoes, and a few sweets now and again. It said 3 servings a week of sweets, not daily, a week. And then monthly, you can have maybe one a week of red meat, according to this diet. It is not a staple. It is, and I've seen Mediterranean diet charts that put meat and sweets together at the top of that pyramid, right? Um, so all of these types of foods are healthy for you. And like I said, Darlene will send you the slideshow so you can take a look at it a little bit more. But when I make food at my house, my whole plate, so half my plate is vegetables and greens, a quarter of my plate is a protein of some sort, and a quarter of my plate is a carbohydrate, preferably a whole grain carbohydrate. And you know, I have a history in my family of diabetes, heart failure, um, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. And I will tell you, I have none of those things. Um, and I believe it is because I put thought and intention into what I eat and what I serve my kid. Um, it is the foundation. It is how we build new cells, right? What you put into your body is the fuel that helps build new cells and gives you energy to function. So give it the highest quality fuel you can. I also want to talk about your microbiome. You know, we've talked a lot about this recently in our, you know, in our culture, and I just want to put in a huge plug for regularly eating foods rich in pre and probiotics. So fiber helps to feed the prebiotic, that is the prebiotic that helps feed your probiotics. You want a vast diversity of microbiome. There's lots of different beneficial bacteria that should be living in your gut and on your skin and in your brain. And probiotic foods help you get them. So I've listed several different kinds here. I make kombucha at home using herbal teas that I blend. I regularly eat kimchi. Apple cider vinegar is something that I consume regularly. I do have miso in my fridge. I like to do yogurt and kefir. And I'm not a huge fan of sauerkraut, but maybe I just haven't had the right sauerkraut. There's so many different recipes. I'm willing to try more. I am not a fan of natto. And apologies to any Japanese folks in the audience that like natto, but I don't know, the stickiness texture really gets to me. It's fermented soybeans. But I do like tempeh, which is a form of fermented soybeans. It's like in a little pressed patty. I've eaten that before. So yeah, and there's just so many different probiotic foods that you should be eating on the regular. Our ancestors used fermentation to preserve food. And so a lot of times in the winter, those were the vegetables that you ate. They were fermented vegetables that you had fermented from harvest time. We don't do this as much anymore, right? We get our food from the grocery store, and maybe we haven't thought about adding probiotic foods to our diet, but regularly consuming them keeps you healthy and prevents all kinds of issues. So definitely give it a consideration. There's also, you know, taking probiotic supplements in the short term. If you've got a deficit, let's say you just went through chemo or radiation, you know, your microbiome has been decimated by those treatments. So taking a probiotic supplement is going to help you get back up to a healthy homeostasis. And to maintain that healthy homeostasis, I recommend probiotic foods. So taking probiotic supplements in the short term and then maintaining your microcolony with probiotic foods. The gut brain axis is real. What happens in your gut in terms of your digestion and the microflora that live there affect whether you're anxious, depressed, and have good brain functioning. So again, taking care of your microflora, taking care of your digestion will also take care of your endocrine and nervous systems. Um, it's the first step when I am talking to folks in my practice who have an autoimmune dysfunction or are chronically depressed or anxious. Now I want to talk about bitter. Bitter is a flavor, and Americans just don't eat enough of it. We are actually designed, our anatomy and physiology is designed to regularly consume bitter. And often when I talk to people about this, they're like, well, what's bitter? Is apple cider vinegar bitter? No, that's sour, right? So they don't even understand what they should be consuming because it's not a part of our regular diet. We like sweet, we like processed, we studiously avoid bitter and we consider it negative, like, oh, that's so bitter, blah. Um, but your body needs it. And you don't just have bitter receptors on your tongue, you have them throughout the entire digestive tract, and they've even found them in the lungs and the brain. And when they get stimulated, at least in the digestive tract, because we've done studies on this, they stimulate proper functioning. So if you have a gallbladder issue, right, taking bitters is going to stimulate proper functioning of the gallbladder or the liver or the pancreas or the small intestine, which is where your nutrient absorption happens, or your stomach, where acid and enzymes are produced, or your colon. If you have constant diarrhea or constipation, it's going to stimulate proper water absorption and retention in the colon, right? So digestive bitters are one of those things that I make that practically everyone that I talk to can benefit from because it replaces food that we're not eating. So I keep my digestive bitters bottle in the dining room on the table with the salt and pepper. And that reminds me to take it because you're supposed to take it 15 minutes before you consume a meal, at least twice a day. And it just helps everything function properly. And I will tell you, when you first start taking bitters, it tastes terrible, right? It's bitter. And as your body starts getting more bitter given to it, all of a sudden it doesn't taste bad. In fact, you start craving it. I often put digestive bitters in a plain sparkling water and drink it like that because it tastes good to me now. My body has changed and it is giving me feedback that yes, this is something we want. It's one of those principles of what they call intuitive eating. Once we are open to changing our diets and we start doing that, and our body recognizes, oh, this thing gives me what I need, then all of a sudden we're healthier. Our body is giving us more feedback that we recognize, and we can listen to our gut a little bit more. I have an interesting personal experience when I was in my early 30s. I was living in San Francisco, and all of a sudden, I just developed this intense craving for nori, which is seaweed sheets. They often wrap sushi in it, right? And I wanted nori so bad. So I went to the Asian market and I bought several packages and I just ate it right out of the bag. Tastes fine. It's, sort of briny like the ocean. Um, and after about a week of consuming nori, the craving went away. I have a feeling I was probably low in iodine in my body and probably needed that micronutrient restored. It's important to be able to listen to your body, and it's important to be able to pick up on the signals that your body is sending. Bitters are one of those things that your body, once you start taking it regularly, will tell you it wants. And there's a link to getting some digestive bitters here, but it improves digestion like you wouldn't believe in all the different parts of the digestive tract. If you have digestive issues, digestive bitters is one of those things that can help you. And it's a two-part formula. So I talked about the bitter part of the formula. The digestive part helps with a remedy like gas, bloating, nausea. The example I tend to give is like if you overindulge at a Thanksgiving or a holiday party and you're feeling, oh, like, oh, I overdid it, taking a squirt of bitters all of a sudden will help you. Not only will it help move the food through the digestive tract from the bitter part, but it's also going to relieve gas and bloating and nausea from overconsumption or any other cause through those digestive herbs, also called carminatives. So it's a very powerful remedy and tonic. So key takeaways from this thing that I want you to take away from here. The gut is interconnected to many of your systems that regulate your entire body. Gut health, making sure that you're eating a healthy diet, that you are, consuming bitter, either bitter foods, bitter cocktails, or a supplement of bitter, is going to restore a lot of your overall health. I want you to recognize what dysfunction looks like. Autoimmune disease, acid reflux, GERD, extreme fatigue, or mineral deficiencies that are causing like leg cramps in the middle of the night, or restless legs, or um, eye twitches or muscle twitches, right? All of those things are caused by vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Recognizing those and realizing, oh, I need to make some adjustments in what I'm consuming is important. And you need a good diet, a healthy microbiome, and bitters for optimum digestive health. Those three things. And you can make your own bitters. I would be happy to teach you how. You don't have to buy them from me, but you definitely want to make sure that you're getting what you need in your diet. And a healthy diet would include bitters. There's bitter melon, there's different bitter greens. Coffee is a bitter if you don't put your sugar in it. Um, there's a lot of different kinds of bitters that you can consume. Microflora, you can ferment foods and beverages yourself. This does not have to be an expensive prospect to tonify your digestive system, but it does take some intention and some thought. So my final recommendations are a whole food diet, getting all your nutrition from your diet, taking a probiotic when you're imbalanced. I gave the example of chemo and radiation. Also, if you have anesthesia or you have to take antibiotics, then you're decimating your gut flora because it kills good and bad, right? It just kills bacteria. So helping take a probiotic when you're imbalanced, not all the time, eating fermented foods, taking bitter foods or a tonic regularly, and of course, all the basics: regular sleep, exercise to maintain a healthy metabolism, and care for your emotional health. All of these things will help with your overall health, including your gut health. And I've provided you with some resources. So Haven Herbs is my apothecary. I make digestive bitters, but Lindo Bacon is the doctor that wrote Health at Every Size. And I would highly recommend going to their website. I also, if you email me, I have excerpts from the book Health at Every Size that I would be happy to send you. Cleveland Clinic has a Mediterranean diet food plan that you can follow if you're interested in starting making those transitions. There's an ex-vegan support group linked here that will help you understand like what veganism has done health-wise to people. And then my full script, which is a link to supplements that I don't make as an herbalist. So probiotics, vitamin and mineral extracts, et cetera, et cetera. You can get there if you like, and they're deeply discounted. And I do that as a public service. You don't have to buy things there, but you probably will get professional grade supplements cheaper than you would find anywhere else. So that is what I have to show you. I'm happy to go back to any of the slides, answer questions. It looks like we have about 15 minutes left. So I did it. All right. So okay. I'm looking at the chat. Issues for me is heartburn, gas, and bloating. Yes. So Gas and bloating can be helped by digestive bitters being taken regularly. Heartburn, so acid reflux is an issue. I don't know if you're taking PPIs or not, but there are ways of dealing with acid reflux naturally, and I can send you an article. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat for people in case they want some of these resources. Happy to do that. Um, let's see. I used to take omeprazole, but weaned off of it. Yay, that is a yay. Um, get acid reflux periodically. Yes. So, besides, you know, reducing your spicy food, and avoiding any trigger that you have, if it's not just spicy food. Sometimes people don't understand their triggers that cause their body to create a lot more acid. Um, and so really charting when you get acid reflux and what you eat. So keeping a food journal and then looking when you get acid reflux, look at what you ate like 4 to 6 hours earlier. Um, and see what patterns are established by doing that. That's going to help you avoid your triggers. Not all foods are good for all people. That's why there's no one diet that's good for all people. Some people, are lactose intolerant, for example, and they should not eat dairy products. Although I know a lot of lactose intolerant people, especially in the Midwest, that eat dairy. They do it anyway. So just understanding what your food triggers are. I would also highly recommend bitters because again, it's going to train your digestive system when to release acid and when not to release acid, right? It optimizes digestion. So I would highly recommend doing that as well. Um, let's see. Psoriasis. Yes. So psoriasis is an autoimmune disease, and topicals will possibly help you reduce any outbreaks of it, and put the patches make help them disappear, but they do not deal with the underlying cause of psoriasis, which is an autoimmune dysfunction. Um, I highly recommend working with a holistic practitioner to get to the root of your autoimmune dysfunction. And I will tell you, unlike um, a physician, that these conditions aren't necessarily a life sentence. Um, you can get your body systems functioning again. It takes discipline, it takes work and lifestyle changes, as well as some supplementation in the short term to get you returned to a healthy homeostasis. And that's what